we're going to have a look at data. Where's the data driving us this week, Ash? I do feel in markets like this where really I don't think there's a lot else to look at. The data starts to become a little bit more important.
Yeah, maybe so. It's interesting, really, when we look at which ones have had the major movements, and I suppose in some respects, the data does become important because what it's kind of telling us is that there's a real lack of commitment right across the board. There's nothing that is hugely extreme. In fact, there's very few things that are hugely extreme. When we look at the CAD, which is the currency that I'm going to focus on this week, we do see that there's a big downtick in the buying. So the index has fallen to zero. Not many of them are in the same kind of place. You know, last week we were looking at the pound, but that's had a very small uptick, from last week's measures. This week we're seeing that there's weakness in the CAD. So let's have a quick look at the CAD and see if we can get any kind of information that would suggest that the downtrend in the CAD would continue, or if I should really say, is there a trend in the CAD that could start now moving to the downside? If we look at the commercial change, we don't really have, it's absolutely in balance. 9% long from last week, 9% short from last week. But because the index is right at the bottom, and it's really the only one that is flashing 3 years of negativity, a year and a half of negativity, and 6 months of negativity. So it's the most obvious one for us to look at. And I suppose the point that I was really making earlier is that to only have one is not really too helpful in many respects. I'd much prefer to see a basket of things that were all negative and the dollar, nice and strong, just to give us a little bit more clarity. But you can see here's the index. So we're seeing it down at zero. This is the significant aspect here. I'm just going to take the net levels off. The shorts have really started to come in. And if we think about this on a historical, as a historical level, look right back here, and we haven't seen this kind of shorting in the CAD since 2017. And if we look at the price action, this is what ended up happening. So this is a real flag for the CAD, as I say, maybe it's a bit of a shame that there's only this one, but maybe it helps us just focus our mind a little bit more. I think what Alexis was just saying about oil was quite interesting, because we've seen the oil market rally. But if anybody knows what happened to the CAD on Friday, the CAD had a huge sell-off after those employment numbers from Canada and from America. So that is also sending off alarm bells. It's telling us that there might well be a currency to focus on if the anticipation of the Fed not raising interest rates or having a more hawkish stance just doesn't manifest itself. And that's really what we're looking at. There's this sense in the market that the Fed are going to do something. And we've seen it with stocks. People taking profit with stocks, but every time we get the next piece of data that could add to the puzzle that would encourage the Fed to do something, it's really against that particular thesis. And if that kind of thing was to continue, then we may well see the CAD weaken. We might even see the dollar weaken as well. So if we look back here as well, historically, the other thing that is quite interesting here is that this was the last. This is almost like a double top here. This was the previous high in 2017. That we're back to that level again. We see this uptick in the selling volume here, and that is really kind of telling us that that the Canadian dollar is probably the one to focus on for a short. Now, if we have a look at the seasonal aspect of this as well, the seasonality, if we go here to June, this is the line of June here, then we see that the first week or so there's tends to be an uptick, but then we do see some downside, which takes us into around about the end of June, beginning of July kind of time. So none of this is going to be absolute. We won't get a really clear timing aspect here, but it does suggest that moving into this week we could see some further downside with the CAD. So going on what we've got, then the data is certainly suggesting that that if we are looking for shorting any particular currency this week and probably holding on to it for the next 2 weeks and potentially beyond as well, depending on how things change, is the Canadian dollar. So yeah, I would focus on that personally this week if I was looking to trade anything short. Picking what to trade it against is going to be the key. You may not want to go against the dollar, considering how closely correlated those two currencies are when it comes down to data. They can move in the same direction, which is really what we saw on Friday. So you maybe looking for something else to trade it against would be wise. But that would wrap that up, mate. So yeah, as an overview, Canadian dollar short.
Cheers, Ash. We'll watch that with some real interest. That may well tie into the oil and Alexis as well. Thank you for that, mate. Have a good Sunday in the UK. Nice sunny day over there, mate.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, summer's kicked in now. It's been absolutely brilliant over here.
Enjoy Brighton Beach, mate. Take care.
Thanks, man. See you soon.